Hi there, it's Thursday again, and this is my episode 5 of my Sewing Bee Synopsis. If you do not want it spoiled for you, then pop yourself away off to BBC iPlayer and catch up. And for anyone else that's staying, I'll see you after this. Good morning, my name's Sam and you're watching my channel So Let's Sparkle with Sam, and it is episode 5, which is Art Week of my Sewing Bee Synopsis. So I have been doing this since the beginning, and if you have followed me along, thank you very much and welcome back today. And if you're new, there are 4 more episodes for you to catch up on, and if you like that kind of thing, don't forget to give me a like and a subscribe because it really helps my channel. I do also do another weekly vlog, although I am a little bit behind at the moment and I'm hoping to catch up with those too. So if you fancy catching up on those, I'd very much appreciate it. So it's a little bit hot today in Leamington Spa again. So I'm at home, I'm in my spare room, I've got my notebook and I'm all ready to tell you about what I thought of this week's Art Week. So we started as always with kind of a little bit of messing about with Asmaa and Sarah and Patrick. And Patrick was painting Sarah and Asmaa, and he made a joke about cutting his ears off. So I kind of was quite relieved that it was going to be a bit light-hearted in the art category. So yeah. So that kind of set it off, and then we saw the lovely Sarah in her outfit. She had a beautiful, and it looked like it had been kind of abstractly painted top. It was square necked, and she matched it with some blue tights and some red shoes. So it was all kind of lots of primary colours. She looked very colourful and very lovely as usual. I will be just popping pictures up randomly and in some kind of semblance of order in my video so that you can see what went on in the show. And yeah, so don't forget, if you want to comment, you can comment in the show notes at the bottom, and also in the show notes that's where I've put where everybody placed. So if you want to know where everybody placed in each of the challenges, then I popped that in the show notes for you. So yes, apologies, it is absolutely sweltering here. The pattern challenge. Every week they do a pattern challenge, the transformation challenge and the made to measure challenge. So the pattern challenge for this week was a modernist skirt, so like an abstract skirt. It was a wrap skirt with a bow, and it had 10 applique shapes on, and they had a choice of which abstract shapes they could choose, and it was a taffeta silk main fabric, and then they got scrap fabric out of fabric bins to make the applique shapes, and so that was the challenge. I had lots of thoughts about this challenge. It wasn't really much of a pattern challenge. I mean, the only bit of following the pattern was to make the wrap skirt part of it. It was more of a applique, and I suppose because it was Art Week, it was more about how the contestants kind of, how they got the brief really, and how they interpreted what an abstract was. So it was less about sewing and more about how good they were at art, or how well they understood the challenge. And I have to say, this week, the whole episode, it wasn't my favourite episode. I'm not quite sure what it was, but it didn't hold my attention in the same way. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Sewing Bee. I literally count the days down to a Wednesday. I get so excited about you watching it. I never miss a second. I'm there, sat there, 9 o'clock, BBC One, every single week. But for some reason, this week, it didn't hold my attention in the same way as some of the episodes. I don't know why that was. If you felt the same way, then pop it in the comments and maybe we can figure out what it was about this week's episode. I don't know, maybe you thought this week's episode was your favourite episode, and if so, pop that in the comments as well, because I'll be really interested. So yes, so they all had to make an abstract skirt, and yeah, and they all did a really good job. I will pop a picture of their finished skirts all together. For some reason, Fauve decided that Art Week meant speaking French, and she just kept kind of like popping into a French accent, not actually speaking French, just speaking English with a French accent, for quite a bit of the programme actually, which, yeah, so I'm not quite sure what that was about, but it was entertaining. And yeah, and Asmaa, same as usual, she did her absolutely beautiful clean sewing. Lizzie topped the challenge. It was absolutely fantastic. Her skirt, her applique was all popped on nicely. One thing that I did notice, because I do a lot of applique, is they just pinned their shapes. They didn't use any kind of heat and bond or anything to put their applique shapes down, and they didn't interface or anything, so they just kind of pinned and zigzag stitched. So it was nice to kind of see different ways of them kind of approaching the applique, but they all just approached it in exactly the same way. So that was quite interesting, because I do a lot of free motion embroidery and applique on my machine, and I kind of use lots of different ways depending on what fabrics I'm using. So I think that was another thing. I was just a little bit disappointed that they all just did the same thing. But you know, hey ho. So Lizzie she said that she was an art student in the 90s, and so I think this was very much it was kind of her challenge, and she did come top in it. So I was, you know, it was beautifully sewn. Mia didn't do so well in this challenge. Again, it being a pattern challenge, and I did think it being a pattern challenge, I know it was Arts Week, but it was a pattern challenge, and she was the only one that, you know, didn't follow the pattern correctly, because her waistband was way too short, and the only reason she got away with it is she covered it with a great big bow. So I did think, actually, you know, if it is a pattern challenge, then really she should have come last. But then her applique was nicer than the other ones. So there you go. Who knows how these things get judged? Excuse me, my hair is just flopping all over the place in this heat and humidity, so I do apologise. So yeah, so they all did a really, really good job of theirs, and some of them not so much on the applique, but they all managed to have a skirt at the end of it. So, transformation challenge, not always everyone's favourite. I did find it really interesting though how they went about and how they organised the transformation challenge. So the transformation challenge was, they had canvases. Now the canvases were painted by Leeds Arts University, and they were fine art students. And just to let you all know, because this was of comfort to me, the art students knew they were commissioned. They were commissioned for the show. So the art students knew that their beautiful artwork was going to be cut up, slashed, and made into a garment. So they knew that, and that gave me comfort. So I thought I'd just let you know. And so, yeah, so they had these massive, you know, I think they were probably kind of, I don't know, maybe 8 foot by 6 foot. They were massive canvases that they kind of slashed and then made into garments. And because obviously the canvas material was a very kind of thick, you know, like a thick fabric canvas, they all made very sculptural. And I think that again, because it was Arts Week, they wanted sculptural arty garments. That was all part of the brief. And I will pop up the kind of row of them all finished. I don't have very many individual shots. I had a bit of a problem last night when I was watching, and I did have to stop it halfway through. I had a problem. I don't know whether we had a bit of a power cut or something happened. So yeah, so I didn't get quite as much information as I normally get. I did watch it again this morning and got some shots, but I didn't get all of the shots that I normally get, so I do apologise. So yes, Lauren made beautiful kind of sculptural. It looked like it'd been sliced, you know, like slices of butter and then popped on top. It did look really nice. I loved Lauren's choice of canvas. Fauve went very Vivienne Westwood, punky, kind of monochrome, which again I really enjoyed. Vicky made like a tunic-y, was it a tunic or a jacket-y type top? And she did say that she was very challenged by the on-the-spot creativity part of that challenge, and I have to say it wasn't the most creative. It was very nice, you know, the canvas was nice, but it wasn't the most creative one. Tony W made a jacket with binding, and again it definitely wasn't one of the most creative choices. Lizzie's I quite liked. The judges didn't think it was very creative, but she made a dungaree dress and I just thought, oh, that's cool. And I did really enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I liked the canvas. I liked the way that she'd used the canvas to make the dungaree dress, and it all just kind of seemed to make sense to me. But hey ho. And then Mia made, it was all kind of like very rainbow, very abstract, very kind of fluid movement. One thing that I noticed about this one was I saw a lot of draping and pinning from Mia, but I didn't see, and I watched it 3 times because I watched it again this morning. I didn't see Mia do any actual sewing. I just saw lots of pinning. So I don't know whether that was part of the challenge, that it didn't have to kind of like sew it all and that it could just be pinned and draped. But I could be totally wrong. It could all have been sewn, but we just didn't get to see that bit because obviously you don't get to see everything. And then Asmaa she said it was an elephant, and I did kind of see the elephant, but the actual finished result definitely wasn't. And it was just very, very sculptural. It was all kind of blues and it reminded me of shells under the sea. Asmaa's beautiful kind of blue creation was the winner. And so yeah, so that was the transformation challenge. And then after that was the made to measure. So the made to measure brief was to make a surrealist dress, and as you would imagine, they all kind of went about it in very, very different and very, very individual ways. So Vicky, she made a quilted eye, kind of a surrealist eye dress. Lauren's was like an illusion dress with like a shirt upon a dress, which is very interesting. Tony's was feathers and velvet. Mia's was the pom-pom dress, and Postman Tony's was this is a dress, and that's where I've got the name for our video this week. And then Asmaa's was a childhood dream about being chased, and Lizzie's was like an eyes on sleeves dress. So what I'll do is I'll pop all of the pictures on so you can see them, and then as they're on, I'll tell you a little bit about each one and what I thought of each one. So, oh, I didn't tell you about Fauve's as well. I'll leave Fauve's to the end. So, Vicky's, the quilted eye. So she spent a lot of time quilting and making the eye, and it was, you know, it definitely hit the brief. The one thing that was criticised on it was that it didn't fit her model, and I think on a made to measure challenge it needs to fit the model perfectly, and she said herself it was way too big at the back. So that was a little bit disappointing, but the dress itself was definitely hit the brief. Lauren's illusion shirt, so I would say she went, I know this is a bit of a juxtaposition, but she went very literal with the Surrealist. It was, you know, very based on an image that she'd seen, and she kind of copied that image of the shirt on the dress. And one of Patrick's criticism was that it wasn't illusionary enough, because she had like a band that was holding it, so you could see how it all worked and come together. So he felt that it didn't quite hit the brief, but it was a very nice dress. And then Tony's was kind of all feathers. It was, I think the story behind it was some kind of like bridal dress with like a hood, and it was kind of based on that. But to me it looked a little bit like Phoenix from the ashes. It was all like feathers and flames, so it was very interesting. I have to say though, it didn't fit his model as well as it could have done, but it was a very nice dress. And then Mia with her pom-poms. We had a little lovely story from Asmaa about her friends making pom-poms for her 60th birthday, which was lovely to put in her beach hut. And Mia made a big pom-pom cloud dress, and she added little, like, I think they might have been diamante beads to look like raindrops. And I have to say, that was up there as one of my favourites. I thought it was really lovely, just because, you know, it was just really, really cute. I do think she missed a trick though, because she did it all white. It was all white tulle pom-poms. And because it was supposed to be a rain cloud, I think it might have been nice if she'd have popped in some different colour. But maybe white was the right thing. I don't know. It was just, I think if I would have done it, I might have put some extra colour in there. And then Postman Tony. Now, his was my favourite, as in my favourite idea. So the idea of the Surrealist dress, Tony's was my favourite, but he didn't pull it off the best. But his idea was great. So he had a very, very simple outline dress, just really simple, fit the model nicely, but it was just a dress. And then it had vinyl lettering on it that said, "This is a dress." Because this is a dress. And I thought the idea was great, and I was really excited to see how it was gonna, but again, he missed a trick with colour. I think he should have done white vinyl letters on the black dress, and then it would have really like popped it out, but it was it was kind of too black on black, and it just, to me, didn't have the statement that it should have had. But I loved the idea. Asmaa's dress was a bit dark. I mean, it was one of those things that I didn't like it, but I did like it. Do you know what I mean? It was like, oh, I don't like that. It all had snakes coming off it, and it did look a bit dark and scary, and it was all about her dream. It was linked to her dream of being chased, so I should imagine it was meant to be scary. But again, true Asmaa style, she executed it beautifully. It was a very nice dress. And then Lizzie's was, again, kind of like a Surrealist eye, and then the eyes were on the sleeves. I thought it was made very nicely, but for me, I don't know. I think I had this with the whole episode. I thought it was a little bit boring. I'm sorry, it's just my opinion, but I did find it a little bit boring. And then there was Fauve's, and Fauve was the winner of this challenge, and she got Garment of the Week for this dress. And it was leatherette. She did say leather and lace initially, and that's what I initially wrote down, but when I watched it again, it was actually pleather. It was actually leatherette and lace, and that kind of gave a good juxtaposition between the kind of hard and soft flowing lines, and then there was a picture which I shall put up here, and that was the inspiration behind it. So I hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of you know how well she kind of executed the idea to the finished dress. So yeah, so that was the made to measure. So as I already said, the Fauve won the Garment of the Week, and very, very sadly, and I felt sorry for all of them this week, Sarah did actually look really teary when she was saying the goodbyes, and it was time to say goodbye to Tony W. And I have to agree, I think it was his time to go. He didn't have the best week in the last episode, so to have another bad week, I think it was time for him to go. It was very sad. And then on to next week. So next week is Children's Week, and I am really looking forward to that. I love watching people make children's clothes. I don't have any grandchildren as yet. My children are all grown up. I do have some nephews that I occasionally make little bits and pieces for, but I don't really make a lot of children's clothes. But I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what they get up to. Children's Week historically has also been a favourite of mine, so I'm really looking forward to that. So a little bit of apologies. I haven't got a little snippet of my sewing this week, and the reason that is because I haven't done any. I'm going away on holiday next week, and I've just been concentrating on holiday sewing, so I haven't done any Sewing Bee sweepstakes sewing this week, so apologies, but you did get to see my little bees in my garden earlier, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I might pop my bees in my garden on at the end so you can see it again. So I hope you enjoyed, and if you stayed to the end, cheers, well done. Don't forget to sparkle, have a lovely week, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.